This is a Hayward Tuck Stories recording of Some Talk of Monsters, Book 1, An English Heritage, Chapter 8, Something is Out to Get You. When Kip, Sebastian and Cindy entered the upstairs room above the bar, it was already jam-packed with students. He had expected to see students sat on chairs in a circle, but it wasn't like that at all. Some had brought their portfolios with them, others had samples of their work on canvas, some woven onto cloth, and there was even some small sculptures positioned on upside-down crates, prototypes for much larger pieces. Stella was already there, sitting at a table with her colour chart fanned out, and talking to a much older woman. I want to do something pop art, on our world of consumption, with synthetic resin paint, a silk screen, ink on canvas. It's nothing new though, is it? Well, hasn't everything been done before? Stella asked. So what are you going to do for your art show, Cindy? Kip asked. Well, I had wanted to study the darker aspects of our hunger for meat, the industrialized slaughter of animals, murder for our own consumption, but then I decided on vivisection. I think it has a stronger emotional response amongst people, especially people of our age. Here, let me show you. Cindy opened the cardboard box and lifted her creation onto the table. Keep in mind that this all has to work on stage as part of a set, so I put together some ideas for props. With this one, I've taken the inners out of a dead cat and stuffed it full of pharmaceutical packaging and medicine bottles. I call it Cat Attack. A noble cause. We shouldn't be testing on animals. Did you really use a dead cat? No, silly. The whole thing's made from polyurethane foam, wire, wood and adhesive. Realistic though, isn't it? It is, said Sophia. You should try using enamel paint next time. It'll look better and add toughness. Yes, Sebastian agreed. It has to be durable if the play has a long run. Kip felt as if everyone but himself had their projects mapped out. It hadn't occurred to him before that he was that unfocused, or that he was lazy. To become a top photographer, that's all I've ever wanted, said Sophia. I want to do a study of the homeless, but in a way in which I break with the stereotypes. What do you propose to do? Sebastian asked. I'm going to live on the streets for a week in Barnsley, to capture the right shots. Sounds extreme, Kip said. In my first art project, I wanted to show how easy it is to demonize people with the camera. It started with hearing that phrase, the one on how the camera never lies. Well, I never believed that, and I wanted to show how you can take two pictures of the same scene and show a different viewpoint in each. I was always suspicious that photojournalists would set the scene up in order to get the message the newspaper had asked for in their briefing. That's really interesting, Sebastian said, finding Sophia's ideas fascinating. So I started documenting people from the ex-mining towns in ways that you never saw in the papers. I was using filters, creating rich colours, instead of the standard black and white photos typically used, showing the stark realities of poverty and dirt. There wasn't any dirt in any of my pictures. Why is it that we always have a picture of dirty hands and faces and unwashed clothing when we imagine what a miner's family looks like? Why do we assume that they don't wash? It's because the photojournalists always take this picture and therefore it's all we see. It's this type of stereotyping that's at the heart of my work. Sebastian agreed, and then Kip said, they're discriminating against us in the same way by always showing students on demonstrations. I think that the photograph is the highest form of propaganda, the picture only revealing the meaning chosen by the photographer, so it can never be the truth. Therefore, it is a fact that the camera does lie, and that's the title of my new exhibition. It's all a bit grim though, isn't it? Having to camp out in Barnsley? Kip turned his head and saw an older man wearing a tatty jumper talking to two younger guys. After I leave here, one of the boys said, I'll probably never read a novel again. Well, that's what happens, isn't it? Do you do any reading for pleasure, Simon? Mike asked. What are your attitudes to literature? Nothing like this, he said, holding up a copy of Middlemarch. I'll always go to the theatre, said the other boy in a yellow jumper. Yes, but would you want to sit somewhere and read the play script? I see what you mean, Mike. Kip looked at the young man, wondering if this was the same Mike that had been attacked by Catherine Brooks. He didn't look like a wimp. What differentiates the primitive or savage from the civilized? Another boy, wearing a black t-shirt, asked. That's obvious, said Mike. The written word. No. Jewellery, said the boy. Have you seen how many beads people wrap around their necks in tribes? We don't do this. Now you're just being silly, said Simon. Mike then said, I think he means that it's down to culture. No, I don't. The name's Gary, by the way. The room by now is filled with tobacco smoke and the stench of sweat. I'll open the window so we can feel the breeze, said Cindy, who was now standing next to Kip. That guy, do you know if he's Catherine's ex-boyfriend? He is, Kip, Cindy replied, who had also been watching Mike with the two boys. Why don't you go and introduce yourself? But before Kip could, an argument broke out behind him. So I have nothing to say, yeah? Shouted a tall guy in a beanie. You're just another bad poet, yelled his friend, taking off his glasses. I'm not. It's just part of the syllabus. Poetry stinks, man. Dopeheads thinking they're so incisive. Egotistical, effeminate boys with a machismo infatuation. You would say that. What does that mean? You know exactly what I mean. The smaller man then took a swing for the guy in the beanie and hit him in the jaw. Luckily the fight ended there and they left together, apologising to each other as if it had never happened. Mike turned to Kip and said, The writer's mind is a cruel one, torturing his characters with a tap on the keyboard or with his pencil scribbles. I'm Mike, by the way. I run a creative writing class here on Wednesdays and Fridays. Are you interested in writing? I like to write. I'm a drama student. The name's Kip. The students in the room were all talking. Many were in deep discussion on how to create the most perfect and meaningful piece of art that would be representative of their time. The girls always want to do sex stuff. They have an obsession with genitalia. Is it because of feminism? Asked Sebastian, to a lady sporting large framed glasses. It's nothing to do with any ism, she laughed. All I see is photographs of the nude, Sebastian said. Even worse was that photo montage on the penis. Don't you have any sexual curiosity? Female or maid nudity shouldn't shock you. Mike turned around and joined in the conversation. It doesn't shock us. I think we're just bored of it. It's like every year students come and think they'll get a first if they choose something that verges on the pornographic. I'd like to see something new. I want to see something on innocence. Sophia overheard Mike's comments and walked over. She had a dim view of boys in general, and this one seemed no different. I find your remarks rash and inaccurate, Sophia said, butting in. But I do like your face. Thanks, he said. Where does the inspiration lie? Isn't that the question we need to ask? Sophia continued. The theme is always a personal one, said Cindy. It has to be clear and meaningful to the artist. Well, I managed to snap my way out of here, interrupted a tall, thin girl. That's right, said Mike. Where is your exhibition, Shamila? In Croydon. Cool. What's it about? Oh, she said. The poor and unemployed in working-class Manchester. Very Elizabeth Gaskell, Mike said, grinning. Thanks, she said. That kind of theme goes down well in the South. My art project is about our animalistic traits, said Sophia. How, depending upon circumstance, we're only weeks away from losing our civilized nature. Have you read Lord of the Flies? I want to capture that moment on a man's face, the moment when he almost reverts back to being a savage. What about using Brian as a model? Cindy said, chuckling. He has both ape and human features. Not the physical appearance, Sophia remarked. It's about our inner beast. For my social science project, said Cindy, I'm studying the increases in cannibal experimentation amongst modern-day teens. Urban myth, though, surely, Cindy, Mike asked. Not at all. Have you not been reading the papers? This has been a difficult year for me, said Sophia. My work has yet to find its purpose. Aesthetics or ethics? What should be my force? Asked Mike. I know how you feel. Yes, said Sophia, smiling sweetly at him. How can my art respond to the crisis I live in? When is my art finished? Cindy replied. Can it ever be finished? Sometimes less is more, said Sophia. That doesn't help me at all, said Kip. I don't know what to do. My photographs are taken with a large format analogue camera, said Shamila, opening her portfolio case. Look, I developed these in the college darkroom. Well, until they started charging me for the chemicals. Have you done any modelling, Mike? No, he said, as Sophia leant in and spoke softly in his ear. I shall have to photograph you one day, she said. Women are the future, said a hefty-looking guy in a rugby shirt. Geoffrey, by the way. Dramatic arts. You hang out with John, don't you? Sophia asked, shaking his limp hand. Yes, he said. Just endured 2 hours of experimental theatre. You didn't enjoy it then? Asked Cindy. I didn't understand it, he said, scratching his wrist. Too much symbolism for my tastes. It was John's play, that, wasn't it? Asked Kit. Yes. It was on historicism. Yes, it sounded really interesting, said Kip. Any standing ovations? No, none. Shame. He worked so hard on it as well, said Sophia. All that nudity for nothing. Kip then turned to Sebastian and whispered, I wish I hadn't chosen to do drama now. Everyone wants me to parade around in my underwear. Is that normal? Geoffrey laughed. If it's Arthur Miller, then no, it isn't. Brecht, mind you. It's a play by Orton, said Kip, feeling himself blush. Then in walked John with a big smile on his face. Oh, then it's trousers off, I'm afraid, kid. You'll have to get used to it if you want to be an actor. Kip looked nervous and said, I had to read for Entertaining Mr. Sloane. No one's ever undressed me before, not since my mother. You're just the worst drama student ever, said Sebastian. You've got no confidence. What made you think you could be an actor? I don't know. Then Mike asked, So you're all right with on-stage nudity then, John? If it's necessary for the role, I wouldn't say I enjoy it. Then Geoffrey shocked everyone. He put his hand on Kip's shoulder and asked, Is it true that your brother was murdered? Yes, said John. Some story you told a couple of weeks ago. You set a lot of tongues wagging. I didn't make it up, if that's what you mean. John then said aggressively, Well, it's common knowledge around campus now, isn't it? Kit was beginning to feel scared around John. He wasn't sure why, but now John could play on all the unwanted attention his announcement had brought him. But what was really starting to bother Kit more was that people had started saying disrespectful comments about his brother. Wasn't Hop that sad loner who was friends with Maximilian Chesterton? Geoffrey asked. It was starting to seem that Max was more liked around the college than his brother had been. I came across a series of photographs in the library that Maximilian Chesterton had taken, said John. He was very good, wasn't he? I bet your brother wished he could take photographs like Max could. They're on the wall, over by the sociology section. 8 prints entitled Rich Kids in Dirty T-shirts. They're very interesting. You should take a look. End of Chapter 8, Part 1.